Hello and welcome to the third bonus episode of the Cinescope Podcast. Following up on his appearance in last week's episode 19, where we talked about David Lynch's 1984 film adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel Dune, is Patrick Casey, or perhaps more appropriate for this episode, Holtzmann. And today we are talking about Bungie's 2014 online first-person shooter video game, Destiny. Patrick, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back. We recorded this fairly shortly after doing the Dune episode.
We did. It's only been a few minutes for us, but
about
a few
3
days
minutes
for everybody else. So how about you sort of briefly reintroduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your history with Destiny?
Well, my name's Patrick Casey, otherwise known as Holtzmann. Fun fact that the name Holtzmann actually came from Dune as well. I seem to be a little bit of a fanatic about that. But my job is to work on YouTube and make videos about Destiny, everything from weapon reviews to news. We have a podcast, the Destiny Community Podcast, where we bring in people from the Destiny community and just talk about the game every single week at Thursday.
Very cool. And I listened to that show. I listened to the previous podcast that you guys did, and it's definitely part of my weekly podcast listening routine.
Awesome. We were really surprised by how popular the original Planet Destiny podcast was, because prior to that, when they said, "Hey, Patrick, do you want to make a podcast?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I quietly said, "I have no idea what a podcast is. I've never listened to one of these."
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was my first experience. I said, I got together with one of the other people at Planet Destiny and said, "Hey, let's just talk about Destiny for an hour, I guess." And people liked it. So we kept doing it and building upon it. And yeah, I guess I'm a podcaster now.
Right, and well, Destiny is definitely one of those games that is built around the community. And
yes.
So having somebody to tune into every week to just talk about the latest updates and what we want to see in the future and express community concerns, I think that's a very appealing idea for a show for a game like Destiny.
Yeah, every single week we get people, even during the content lulls, people still will tune in, even though they haven't played Destiny in a while. They just want to, tune in and see what's going on with the community, see what's going on with the game.
Right, and that's actually sort of me right now. I still play Destiny every now and then. I still have my clan. I still have family that plays it. But really my main focus with the video game at the moment is listening to all the podcasts that talk about it. And
Gotcha.
So let's go ahead and sort of introduce the game before we dive deeper into the discussion. So Destiny was released September 9th of 2014. It was developed by Bungie, who of course is known for the Halo series, Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, 3 ODST, and Reach, and it was published by Activision. The music for this video game was composed by Martin O'Donnell, who has since left, and also Michael Salvatore, C. Paul Johnson, Sky Lewin, and Stan Lepard. The game features the voices of Nolan North as our ghost, Nathan Fillion as Cade Six, Bill Nye as a speaker, and then just other names. We have Lauren Cohan, Eric Avari, Kirsten Potter, D. Bradley Baker, Gina Torres, Lance Reddick, Lenny James, Keith Ferguson, Fred Tatasciore, and Morla Gorondona.
And there are so many more than that.
There
is a rather stunt-casted list of voice actors and actresses.
Right, and I guess we can we'll get to the scope of Destiny here in a little bit, because it is an enormous game. But what brought you to Destiny specifically?
Well, I was working at Target, and I did not own a PlayStation. And I had some expendable income at the time. And when you work in retail, you can't actually buy something during your shift. You have to wait until your shift is over. And we had one PS4 left, and this was like a month after they had come out. So it was very odd for us to actually have one on the shelf. And I was just looking at it and going, you know what? If that's there at the end of the shift, I'm going to buy it. And then during my break, I'm looking up what games are going to be out for the PS4. And I was like, oh, Destiny. Oh, made by the guys that did Halo. I also liked Myth and Marathon from them. Okay, yeah, I'll give that a shot. And sure enough, the PS4 was there at the end of the shift. I purchased it and pre-ordered Destiny the next day. Or not the next day. I pre-ordered it during the summer when you could finally pre-order it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was looking for a Halo-esque shooter game at the time. You know, the only Halo game I'd ever really played was Halo 3. And that came out my sophomore year of high school, I think. And I just basically played the multiplayer. That was all I did, was I did multiplayer. And it was the popular thing to do when you hung out with friends. People would come over and you'd have a LAN party or whatever. So I was craving that same sort of Halo experience. And lo and behold, this game called Destiny is coming out. And so I purchased it. I already had the PS4 because of the Blu-ray. And my uncle actually lived in London at the time. And I never lived near my uncle. I maybe see him 2 or 3 times a year. And so this was a game that we could play together. And so we both purchased it launch week, and we would play a few hours on the weekends, mostly just through the story mode. And for the first few months of Destiny, that was my experience. I played a few hours on the weekends, story mode, no Crucible really, maybe a game or two here and there. But I wasn't a multiplayer kind of person. I just wanted to play the game and shoot the guns and all that kind of stuff.
It's very interesting how the game, you have these expectations going into it, and I quickly abandoned them. Do you do much PvP now? I do a lot more. Yeah. When I went in, I said, I don't want a game where I do PvP. I have other sources for that, other shooters. I'm really interested in the PvE. And then I ended up, I'm like basically only doing PvP. It's very interesting how the expectations change for it.
Yeah, when January of 2015 came out, so at this point we'd had the first DLC release, The Dark Below, and I had just finished student teaching. I had just graduated from college. I was in between employments. And so, hey, I dove headfirst into Destiny. And from mid to late January all the way through October, I literally played this game every single day for multiple hours a day. And I was playing with my uncle in the afternoons because he was 6 hours ahead. And then in the evenings when he was in bed, I was LFGing for a little bit to sort of try and get my feet wet with the raids, which I'd never done anything even remotely similar to that before. And then eventually I just joined a group on the 100 in probably late January, early February. And I've been playing with those guys now for 2 years.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Shout out to Echo Company 892.
I love all the names because anytime I see a clan tag and it's like Echo Company, Bravo Company, it's like, 100.io clan right there.
Man, and I'll tell you, people out there looking for a team, the 100.io is a great place to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so with them and with my uncle, I sort of branched out into raiding and Nightfalls, and the Crucible eventually was once House of Wolves came out, and there was that big long content lull until the Taken King came out.
Oh, so, I know about that content lull.
And that is when I started playing Crucible a lot more.
Yep.
And it's just, like I said, I'm not playing as much today. I don't get on every day. I have other things that I'm more concerned with, but I do like to pop on, and Destiny very much feels like my home base game. Whether I put in something else or I put in a movie or just ignore my PS4 for a while. If I feel the need to scratch that Destiny itch, it just feels like I'm going home. And that's something that I don't feel with really any other video games.
Yeah, it's interesting. I felt the same way that you felt about Destiny with World of Warcraft for a very long time. It was always there, and it's like I'm just gonna log in, just home game, dick around for a little bit. Okay, cool, and then log back off, go get back to work, go do something. But yeah, Destiny is the same way for me right now as well. It's even though it is my job to basically play the game, it's always nice to just be able to log on and have a couple friends on or just do a couple of activities. It exists as kind of like this comforting, reassuring home away from home that I can play within my own home.
Right. It's no secret that this game wasn't entirely super well received when it first came out for a myriad out of reasons.
Yeah.
So you mentioned dropping your expectations once you started playing. What sort of expectations did you have, and what made you sort of slip away from that?
So I was a very experienced World of Warcraft player. So doing raids, I had done those in WoW for years before Destiny had come out, and I'd done a little bit of it in Borderlands, and I was like, okay, I want something more. And seeing that there was going to be 6-player raids in this game, I was like, oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to go into it. And I loved the Vault of Glass when it first came out. It was a fantastically designed raid, especially as like a first raid for a lot of people. Most people that played the game had never actually done a raid-like activity before.
Uh-huh.
And, like then seeing the other raids that came out, the one for Dark Below was much shorter. I was like, okay, that's cool. And then there wasn't a raid for House of Wolves. So my expectations for the PvE side of the game slowly kind of diminished from there. And I kind of quickly fell into what happened with World of Warcraft for me, was where I remembered that once I kind of solve the puzzle of PvE, it doesn't become as interesting anymore to me. So I would always shift over and start playing PvP much more and really get into that, which is basically what keeps me going in the game right now. Is I truly love, improving myself as a personal player, improving some gear, figuring out new ways to play the game in terms of killing people in the Crucible, at least.
Right. I've always liked the game, and when I first started out, I was literally just looking for a Halo-esque shooter, and I got that with Destiny, and just playing a few hours every weekend, not really exploring anything. I wasn't plugged into the community at that point. I didn't know there was a community at that point. My experience with other people in Destiny was the random people I came across in a patrol zone and my uncle. And so there was one time we even loaded into the Vault of Glass because we didn't know what it was. And we ran around for half an hour trying to mess with those sync plates and had no idea what we were doing. And so I didn't really have expectations that needed tempering because I got what I expected and what I was looking for. And over the course of 2015, as we did go through the great content drought of 2015.
Oh, yes.
That's when I started branching out a lot more. I had gotten into the raids at that point. I'd gotten a little bit into PvP and just really started working on improving my PvP game. But still, I always enjoyed the game. And I always go back to how fantastic just the gunplay in Destiny is.
No, they definitely nailed that. I think that was the kind of the saving grace of it for the most part, is even if you didn't like the story, which no one really liked the story, even if you, were like, there's not a lot of content, because everyone thinks, man, there's not a lot of content. And they are correct. There's not really a lot of content there. No matter what, any negative aspect that you think, you have to agree that the gunplay in this game just feels so good. And it makes you want to keep going back, try out this other new gun, shoot it, see how it plays and everything.
And the fact that you have an arsenal outside of guns as well is just so satisfying. I play Warlock primarily. I have all three characters, but Warlock was what I started with and what I still continue to play. And throwing a Nova Bomb, I feel powerful every single time. Well, let's talk about the sort of framework of the story just a little bit. Are there any threads that you find particularly interesting or something like that?
The one thread that they've been consistently building throughout the game is Rasputin, the war mind, which I love that term, war mind, for an AI. And it's this, we don't know much about Rasputin. We don't know much about this apparently very powerful entity that is Rasputin. And he's shown up in every single expansion for the most part. Every single one of them, he's always there. He's this very integral part to the defense of Earth. But at the same time, in the most recent one, we found out he's also kind of a villain. At the same time, he attacked the Iron Lords. Why? That's the one thread that I really wish we could dive into a little bit more. We seem to get tons of little snippets and stuff in the Grimoire, small little mentions in the story every single time. But, if we could just get an April update sized thing to the game, just all about Rasputin, and really explore the lore of him, I feel like that would be wonderful.
Right, I agree. I really like how many questions. I mean, on one hand, this game leaves me with too many questions because they don't explore themselves in the story. But on the other hand, it leaves me asking questions because I'm just so drawn into the world. And even though they don't explore everything in game, there is the lore that I haven't dove too deep into. But the idea of the traveler, the speaker, who are they? What are their intentions? And what happened to, or who is the Exo Stranger? And what more is there to learn about the Vex and the Cabal? And hopefully all of those things are coming in future updates. But
hopefully
the fact that I am so burningly curious about those aspects of the game just proves that they've done something right with the story here, and that they've built the framework and it's drawn us in. And that's why we're so sort of upset that we didn't get more of it initially, right? I'm just impressed with the scope of the world. I love the concept of the Traveler and Guardians and Ghosts and Supers. All of those are really fascinating. And then the four main races that we have so far, the Cabal, the Vex, the Hive, and the Fallen, We've learned a lot about the Hive, and we've built on that. We've gone from the Hive to the Taken, and we've gone from the Fallen to the Siva. And I love how they're building on what they've done, and they've definitely done better in that regard with the past two expansions.
Definitely.
So I'm hopeful for the future, and maybe it's sort of April update. We'll see what this December update has first, and then the April update, and then Destiny 2.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite expansion so far?
I have two favorite expansions. Taken King is my favorite because it's kind of that statement of, okay, we realized we need more stuff for the game, and we realize that a lot of the systems need reworking, and it's just this wonderful package of things in the game. And they still got some stuff wrong during it, like the infusion for armor to level up everything, little things like that. But overall, I feel like Taken King was a wonderful statement, and then Rise of Iron is just improving upon that further. And I felt very engaged in the story in Rise of Iron. I didn't particularly like Saladin's character that much. He was kind of cool, but at the same time, that some of the lines that he had were just felt a little cheesy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was the sort of cheesy update. There's a lot of nostalgia kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, they directly said that. Is that when I was at Bungie last, they said, we wanted to build this update upon nostalgia, and we realize how weird it is to say nostalgia for a game that's only been out for like 2 years. But yeah, that was a major building block of this expansion.
Yeah, and I think for that reason, Rise of Iron is my favorite expansion so far. The soundtrack is great. We had that sort of grim despair kind of soundtrack going into Taken King.
I'm so glad we don't have to listen to that that just dark theme we had to listen to that for an entire year. And this one feels so much more hopeful and bright. Every time I log in, I'm like, yeah, I'm not. Oh, Destiny.
Exactly. I mean, so the soundtrack's great. It's nostalgic. There's a surprising emotional depth in this expansion story. And I mean, the storytelling itself is just miles and away better than going back to the Exo Stranger in year one.
Yeah.
And plus we got Iron Gallarhorn. So
yes, I still haven't infused mine. It's at light level 3. And I kind of want to just fully upgrade it, but not infuse it, and then take it into a raid and be like, yeah, I got Gallarhorn. I'm ready to go. It does nothing.
I'd love to see your teammates' reaction to that. What about characters? Do you have any favorite characters?
It's kind of a cheap answer, but one of the things that I love about RPG games is that my favorite characters are usually myself. Because
that's cool.
I feel like I'm building this character. I'm building its identity over the course of the game and everything. My hunter started out. Every character started out, in the exact same area, waking up in this, dead area, and I very quickly was like, I really like jumping. So my character's kind of all over the place. He likes to jump around a bunch, but at the same time, he's cocky. He uses throwing knives when I could just normally shoot you instead. Very small little things like that. I feel like the play style of a person can relate to their character's identity at the same time if they're so inclined to actually kind of recognize some of that stuff.
Right, and that's why I always go back to my Warlock. I like the sort of maybe methodical gameplay of the Warlock, and slower movement than Hunter and Titans, especially.
More precise loading.
Right, minus maybe the floaty jump. But
yeah.
But I handle that just fine, and I think that's a really cool perspective to think of your character as your favorite character in the game. That's different than most people would say, I think. So that's really cool.
It's one of the interesting things about the game. A lot of people are saying, we haven't heard our characters speak since, I think we had like 1 or 2 lines in the Taken King. I think that was it. And we haven't heard them at all in a very long time. And it's one of those things where I'm thinking, I'm okay with not hearing them anymore, because it was so alarming to hear my character speak. Because that's not the voice of my character anymore. I'm the voice of my character. Yeah, so I don't know. If Bungie decides to never have our characters speak ever again, I would be okay with that. I'd be completely okay with that.
Yeah, I don't think it'd bother me too much either. Yeah. Do you have any other characters that particularly tickle your fancy?
Yeah, Cade. Yeah, Cade is
Cade.
I mean, he's the cocky hunter that everyone loves to hate. He has a plan. He's not going to follow protocol or, do what, is right. Go talk to Zavala first, get permission to go get this Guardian on the Dreadnought or something like that. No, he's just going to do it because he feels like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's Nathan Fillion. Yeah. So who could hate Cade 6?
Exactly. Which Cade 6 actually, I believe he has a bunch more lines coming in the Dawning update as well. You get to hear a little bit. Awesome. Get to hear a little bit more from him.
I also really like Eris.
Yes.
She's dark and brooding, and her Dark Below and Taken King storyline is pretty emotionally effective. Hearing what she went through in Crota's End and how she lost her fire team, and it's just surprisingly emotional. And at the same time, she's so creepy, and she has these random bouts of humor that always contrast that and just make her stand out a little bit more.
The Halloween event, I feel, brought a lot of humanity to Eris's character. We had always thought of her, she was off in her own little section of the tower, kind of segregated from everyone else, and she slowly moved back into society, back into the tower, and then now the Halloween event came, and she's part of the event, kind of. She's giving you raisins. She's acknowledging that it's a thing. And the voice actress for Eris, Morla, she also gave out raisins during Halloween as well.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I just have to mention our ghost, our little light. I have to ask, do you like Dinklebot more, or do you like Nolandroid, or whatever we're going to call him?
I can't remember. I think Nolan actually came out and said which one he prefers being called. Is a Nolandroid or Nolanbot. Nolanbot. I can't remember which one he preferred, but I liked both of them. I like both of their performances. I feel like Nolan's captures a little bit of the humanity of the ghost, whereas Peter Dinklage's performance was almost like a human pretending to be a robot, whereas Nolan's is a robot trying to emulate humanity.
I think what I miss about Dinklage's ghost is just the classic lines. There's we've woken the hive. Yeah. And a cell from the prison of elders and that kind of stuff. I miss those iconic sort of lines that he had in year one. But since then, I really like Nolan North and what he's brought to the personality of the ghost.
Yes, indeed.
So let's talk about music just a little bit. Sadly, Marty O'Donnell doesn't work for Bungie anymore. That's depressing. But his music, especially in the first soundtrack at least, is I mean, it's so beautiful. I love the Destiny main theme, and it's very Halo-esque, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It feels familiar, but at the same time, it has a sort of wonder and mystery that feels appropriate to this world.
I believe the overall soundtrack that he created was called Music of the Spheres, which there is a public, or like kind of like this open source thing where they're piecing together all of the components of the Music of the Spheres and redoing it so that we can actually hear the whole thing for the first time. And it's coming along very nicely from what I've heard. Yeah, the soundtrack of Rise of Iron's soundtrack was phenomenal. Yeah, I think in our podcast about Dune, I said, a lot of times you don't notice a good soundtrack. Whereas in a video game, I feel like it's almost a mechanic in the game itself. You have to notice the soundtrack sometimes. And the soundtrack of Rise of Iron is noticeable. It's memorable. It complements the story perfectly.
I think each soundtrack release, we've had 3 so far, brings a sort of different identity to the music of Destiny. Like I said, the first one has this sort of feeling of mystery and wonder. The Taken King release was like dread and despair, which isn't always the most exciting thing to listen to, but it fits the story of the Taken King very well. So I won't begrudge them that. And then, like you said, Rise of Iron, it brings this feel of hope and regality and nobility and returning to a former state of being. And I do really like Rise of Iron for that reason.
Agreed.
Do you have any sort of favorite moments that are enhanced by music? Like any strike bosses or raid moments or anything like that?
I think my favorite moment of music is actually, I believe, from Taken King, when the ghost is like I think it's the prologue to it, or I can't exactly remember. It's the first opening scene where the ghost is saying, when the traveler died, the ghosts, we ghosts were released out into the world, and I didn't know how long it would take to find you, but I did, and it was this very beautiful, moving piece, and then it slowly transitioned into this powerful opening cinematic battle scene, and like those two pieces side by side were this just wonderful storytelling through music.
I agree. The first thing that popped into my head when I was trying to think of memorable moments was the original main menu.
Mm-hmm.
And the original sort of PlayStation theme that you could put on your PS4. Wow. I mean, it's just such a great classic video game main theme. Mm-hmm. And it, like I said, it feels familiar, but it has that Destiny feel to it that just is so good. And then there's the original Sepix strike, that final boss fight. That music's really good. There's the Black Garden final boss from the original Year One storyline. Mm-hmm. There's a moment in that it always reminds me of like Pirates of the Caribbean. It's sort of swashbuckling and really adventurous, and I really like that. And then who can forget the sword music from Crota's End?
Oh, yes.
I always feel powerful picking up that sword and the music plays, and I feel like I'm the most important person of the moment. And
you definitely are in that fight.
Yes, definitely at that moment, and the music contributes to that as well. And then Rise of Iron overall is just a great soundtrack.
Yeah, you liked the Sepix, the original Sepix. What did you think of the redone Sepix music?
I think that was very cool. The sort of rock version of it, the percussion and the electric guitar and all that kind of stuff. It's a good sort of remix.
Yeah.
Now, relevance. What has this game meant to you? Obviously, you've sort of built a career on it, so...
Yeah, I had no intentions of doing that when I first started out playing. That literally just kind of happened over the course of a couple of weeks where, I when the game came out, I was in school, but it was like with first week of school, and then we had a holiday break right when Destiny came out. So I had a full week, due to the way my classes worked out, a full week of playing before I had to go back to school. So I was like, yeah, I got a full week to play this game with no interruptions. I'm going to be a kid again and stay up until 5 a.m. every day. And I did. It was great. Went to the midnight release, picked up the game, played it, played the crap out of it. And I quickly got 4 exotics within the first week of the game.
Wow.
The original Bad Juju, the original Pocket Infinity, Truth, and Thorn. And 3 of those were done by bounties. So we quickly figured out a glitch where you could, if you were on during reset, you could pick up bounties, do them, log out, log back in, and pick up the bounties again. And that was how we were able to farm those original exotics very quickly. And then I couldn't find any information on any of these. I had no idea which to pick, which one was good, how I should use it. And so I just decided, well, I'll write reviews because I'm using them. I know how to use them. And I put out 2 reviews on Reddit. And someone contacted me, and long story short, I became a YouTuber.
That's quite a story.
Yeah, so the game the game's like my job right now, which sounds really cool and really depressing, I guess, because, we're in a content lull, and, opinions of the game aren't exactly very high about some of the stuff. So, I'm very connected to the game, and when it's doing well, I feel great. When it's doing bad, it's like, oh, I wish it could be better. It's definitely shaped my life. I had been doing modding and stuff for video games for a very long time before this, and it's kind of rekindled my love of game design as well, because I'm able to go talk to people at Bungie. I'm able to talk to the developers. What was your intention when designing this? How did you guys go about it? And then hearing about that, and it's kind of wanted me to pursue game design even more, and possibly pursue that as, a job in the future.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. And that's like quite a growth just based on playing a video game. Nobody goes to purchase a video game and expects to make a living off of it, right?
No one also buys a video game and expects, in a year's time, I'm going to be going to the studio that made this game.
Right.
And meeting people. I was like, no one expects to do that. I was like, I'm going to pick this up because I had some extra money at the end of a shift at Target.
It's the only game I've played this consistently and this long. I looked it up earlier. I have nearly 1,800 hours logged into this game.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, that's unprecedented. There's no other game I would ever play like this. I've always been drawn to cinematic games for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. I like games that tell a clear story and have incredible visuals. And, Destiny has half of that. but I still stuck around. And a large part of that is because it's been a way for me to stay in contact with my uncle, who I've never lived near. I've always only seen 2-3 times a year maximum. And he lives in Singapore now, and I can call him up or text him and say, hey, let's get on, play some Destiny. And we'll play some Destiny. And that's just so cool that that's a possibility, and that there's a game that we both enjoy to this extent that we can do that. And aside from that, I've made friends who I've been playing with for almost 2 years now.
It's one of the wonderful things about online games, meeting new people.
Definitely. And even though I'm not playing the game every day now, I sit in a Discord chat half the day talking with these guys, and some of them are from Australia. And so it's just a really cool way for me to have contact with people I never would have met otherwise and form really solid friendships with them.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any sort of final thoughts about Destiny?
As we said, we are in kind of like a content lull, and it's one of the things where I feel like during this time is when we get to see some of the most creative parts of the community come out, because some of us are really thinking about what makes the game great, what could we change about the game to make sure content lulls like this don't happen in the future, what improvements could be made to it. Other people are saying, okay, this is the game that we have, how do I make this fun, because I truly love playing it. And they'll get very inventive with some stuff in private matches, maybe going out and like creating, exotics on their own to see what it's like to design some things in the game. And, content lulls like this are wonderful sometimes. It all depends on what you do with it. And I'm looking forward to when content finally comes, and looking forward to the lulls again, looking forward to when content comes again. I love that cycle that we kind of go through. I
agree. Now, I have to ask, just to wrap this up, do you have any favorite weapons?
Yes, Icebreaker is probably my favorite, and I don't know when this episode will release, but yeah, Icebreaker's coming back in the Dawning, and when I saw that, when I was at PlayStation Experience and I saw that in the trailer, I was like, oh, no, yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
That's awesome. That was one of my first exotics. I actually bought that one. I think that might have been the first exotic I bought from Xur, because I didn't know what Xur was until January or February. It was second week of February, I guess, when he sold that, because I was in San Antonio at the time. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah, Icebreaker was my first love-hate exotic because I had 13 of them. I could only get Icebreakers to drop for some reason, and I would keep them in our original vault that had like 20 slots or something like that. I kept all of them there to show people. I was like, this is how many I've gotten. This could have been something else, Bungie. Please.
I got really lucky with my first run through Vault of Glass. I got Fatebringer and Vex, my first hard mode run, and I got Gallarhorn in that first run. And so for the sort of most sought after ones, I didn't really have to wait very much like a lot of other people did. But Icebreaker was one that I had to buy pretty early on because it wasn't dropping for me just yet.
Yep.
I really always liked the LDR. I know you used an LDR for a long time.
Oh, yes, I did.
I had one with Spray and Play, Clown Cartridge, and Armor Piercing, back when Armor Piercing was
fun.
Really fun, because you could shoot people through walls and stuff like that.
You shoot people through mountains.
Yeah,
it's great.
You could. And right now I've actually got an AS Luna with Sure Shot, Outlaw, Hammer Forged, and Reactive Reload that I love, and that's my go-to PvP weapon. And then I've got to say, of course, Fatebringer and the high impact and high stability machine guns.
Mm-hmm.
Always my fallbacks in the Crucible.
Definitely. They're good weapons for a reason. They're very consistent.
Yes, and I know the answer to this, but what's your favorite class?
That would be the Gunslinger Hunter. I fell in love with it in the alpha. Played with it. I was like, I have a throwing knife. Other people just punch or slap things. I get to stab things from far away. This is great.
Right, and of course you are Bones of AO.
Always. Never take them off. Unless I'm doing a review for another piece of armor, and then they go back on.
And I go with the Voidwalker Warlock with nothing manacles most of the time.
Nice. Have you tried out the Ophidian aspects yet?
Not too much. I think I bought them from Xur, but I haven't been playing all that much recently. And so I played a lot when Rise of Iron first came out and just haven't touched them much since then.
They're really good. If you have that type of playstyle where you like to swap between a bunch of weapons really quickly, swap to your primary, swap to secondaries, bring out the heavy real quick, reload them all quick. They're really good. They're really, really good. They don't come off my Warlock.
Awesome. I'll have to experiment with that a little bit more. But there's just something so satisfying with the well-placed
Oh, yeah.
scatter grenade and
Oh, yeah.
nothing manacles.
I love seeing a bunch of numbers fly up when I use those grenades too.
Yeah. Now, last thing, what are your favorite things to do just in the game?
Improve.
Improve.
It's kind of just improve. I mean, we had a saying back when I was playing Magic the Gathering heavily, and it's always be affecting the board state. And that basically means if you're doing something in the game, you need to be improving your current situation. And translating that over to Destiny, just improve. One word. It solves it pretty easily. Whatever you're doing at the game, try to be improving at it. Whether it be making content for YouTube, whether it be streaming on Twitch, whether it be going into a Crucible match and using a weird weapon, try to improve at using that weapon. If going in, improve at helping people, improve anything. Just always be improving.
Right, giving yourself goals for sure. I really like the year one raids. I've played King's Fall, and I've played Wrath of Machine. I haven't actually finished Wrath of Machine yet. I just haven't gotten around to it. But those year one raids, man, those hit the sweet spot for me, both of them. And I did them over and over and over again in that content lull. And I always love doing patrols and doing bounties while listening to podcasts. That's something I just did all the time, especially during year one. And Crucible with friends is hard to beat.
Yes, definitely is.
Friends. And I like Clash, I like Control, Rumble. It's just fun. I love this game, and there's a lot I like to do in it. Anything else to say about Destiny, Patrick?
Not really. Want to go play.
Me too. Iron Banner is up.
Yeah, I'm going to get that Distant Star. Looks really good.
Yeah, definitely want to check that out. And I guess that's the end of the third bonus episode of the Cinescope Podcast. Thanks again for joining me, Patrick.
Thank you for having me again.
Definitely. Contact for the show, facebook.com/Cinescope Podcast and Cinescope Pod on Twitter. And then you can email at the Cinescope Podcast at gmail.com. Please consider going to iTunes, rate, review, subscribe. And Patrick, where can people find you online?
Oh, Twitter's the best place, at Holtzmann_YT. But if you want to watch some videos about Destiny, the game that we were just talking about, you can go to youtube.com/PKCForte, and you can find tons of videos about stuff in Destiny.
Awesome. The best place to find me is on Twitter at Chadadada, that is CHADADADA, and then facebook.com/Chad.Hopkins. And that is it. All the show notes and all the contact information can be found on the website, thecinescopepodcast.com. And that is it for this special Destiny-focused bonus episode. Thank you one more time, Patrick Holtzmann, for being on the show.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to our third bonus episode. I'm Chad Hopkins. This was Cinescope, and we'll be back later this week with episode 20. Have fun and celebrate movies and video games. Hey everyone, I know you thought we were done, but while producing this recording, I thought to myself, how cool would it be to involve members of my Destiny clan in my Destiny episode? So I sent everyone in the Echo Company 892 chat room a message and waited to see what they would come up with, if anything. I only got a few responses, the rest were probably busy playing Destiny, and here they are, some of the people who I've been playing with for nearly 2 years now, and what Destiny and the clan means to them. Enjoy. From player Snow Leopards Yo. Destiny and the clan has come to mean friendship and community that other games never gave me. Video games were always a single-player thing for me, and when I did try to interact with the communities, they were so toxic I never stayed. Destiny and the clan has made me feel very welcomed right from the start, and I hope it stays that way for a long time. From player Deoxys114. I started late in the lifetime of Destiny. I'm what is commonly known as a Taken Tot. I joined after the first huge expansion. I'd heard good and bad things about the game, but mostly that the game was dead. There's a reason why we joke saying that Destiny is dead, because other people say it a lot. Nevertheless, I wanted to get a PS4, and the Destiny Limited Edition Decal PS4 was on sale for $100 less than its normal price. I was concerned because I'd never played an FPS seriously before. It seemed odds were against me, playing a type of game I've never played and the game being dead. I gave it a try, and so as it turns out, I fell in love with the game. Controls felt great, and I got used to using dual analog sticks pretty quickly. Unfortunately, most of my friends left about 2 months into the Taken King expansion, and I was left solo queuing it up for a while. It led me to quit, but I picked it up again in July out of boredom. I forgot how much fun the game was, but there was still one problem. I still didn't have anyone to play with. I ended up joining a lot of pugs, or pickup groups, but after a while I wanted a stable group. I added these people to my friends list, and then we'd never talk again. That's when I looked to the 100.io, and I found Echo Company 892. Being the new guy in a group is always a terrifying experience for me. Will I fit in? Are they a good group? Are they just a bunch of tryhards? Etc. Turns out, everyone is a great person in this group, and it's been a blast to be a part of it. I would have probably left Destiny again if it wasn't for them. TLDR, started playing a dead game of a game type that I've never played before. Ended up loving it despite everyone saying it was bad or dead. My friends moved on, but I stayed, and I made a new group of friends. They kept me playing the game. From player, Jack Walther. Destiny was the first console FPS I've played. Spent most of my gaming on PC, so the learning curve on the controller was pretty steep. This was also my first multiplayer game since the old MUDD days. I was drawn in by the combination of explorable world, team involvement, and the FPS perspective. I was a solo player when I started in January of 2015 for quite a while until I realized I was missing out on a big part of the game with the raids. Thank goodness for my icebreaker for soloing the Nightfalls. Eventually, I found the 100 site near the end of April 2015 and joined, but the group I was initially with did not fit me at all. During that time, I was also running with the LAB guys for Crota every week as a hunter. That's when I realized I needed to have multiple characters to take advantage of the exotic chest. With 3 characters, I had to branch out besides joining random 100 games. My first experience with Echo 892 was joining a hard mode Crota game with SN Labbit in May. The group was very easygoing, so I stalked the group games for a while. Joined a VOG run with Alcantara, then Crota with Jotun 2305, and my first non-solo Nightfall run with Red Giant 17. I soon realized I was joining all their group games and none of the games in my group. At that point, it was just a waiting game until a spot opened up in Echo 892. My first Echo 892 post was a normal Crota with E-Dark Knight, Red Giant 17, Hopless Heretic, of Astral Blood. Happy to say that the people I played with before joining the group are almost all still in Echo 892. Alcantara, Jotun, of Astral Blood, Burns 164, E-Dark Knight, Red Giant 17, Mosby, Danny, Dino's Cat, MD Frank. As an FYI, the first game I played with Chadadada 17 was Iron Banner, August 2015. Hooray for unlimited Gmail space. The people I play with are the reason I stay with Destiny long after finishing the storyline stuff. If I hadn't joined 892, I probably would have moved on long ago. Having a group of people that don't care if things are not going well, not caring is probably not right, that don't put pressure or blame on you when you're having an off night. Also, the ability to complain and rage and harass during a raid and not have people take it personally, but give it right back to you, is a great stress reliever after a crappy workday without talking shop. Talking with people from all over the world can give a completely different perspective on things. So, as long as the core group of 892 still plays, there's a good chance I'll be around until the end. From player Jotun 2305. Before Destiny, I never would have called myself a hardcore gamer. I've never put so many hours into a game, I've never followed a gaming community, I've never before watched endless hours of videos or read so much about a game before. I think the nature of Destiny being such a unique game, no other game is really like it, and the way it forces you into multiplayer and finding a group if you want to get the most out of it, is what has kept me coming back. After not much luck with groups from Bungie.net, the 100.io is where it all changed for me. If I hadn't lucked out and been put into such a great group with so many people I would call real friends, despite never having met any of them, it probably just would have been another game that got shelved when something interesting came out. It was a lot of first for me. First console FPS, first truly cooperative and competitive multiplayer game, and first game that, despite its many flaws and inconsistencies, has kept me coming back well over 3,000 hours last time I checked. Who knows how many I'm up to now. It's hands down the best game I've ever played. This last one is special because it's from my uncle, who was my original Destiny partner when the game first launched in September 2014, and with whom I played with and talked to nearly every day for the majority of 2015. He says, "I like the game, and I think it's a good fun game, but the main reason I play is to be able to spend time and bond with my family." Because it should be mentioned that my younger brother plays the game as well, and so the three of us, my brother, my uncle, and me, have spent many hours tackling nightfalls, grinding strikes, and suffering through the crucible together. Destiny has always been a fun game, but I'm still playing it more than 2 years after its release because of the social interactions it has helped me to have, both with family and with new friends, and it's those social interactions that will keep me coming back to Destiny in the time to come. Thank you all once again for listening to Cinescope. Keep a lookout for episode 20, which will release later this week. Have fun, and celebrate movies and video games.